Greetings from the Maelstrom Nexus on the plane of Alara, where if you thought the color fixing on Ravnica was rough, oh boy, are you in for a treat. My name is John of the MTG Thoughtcast, and this is Pack It In, where we open up a booster pack and get as many cards as we can into your commander decks. Today, we've got a treat for you. We got ourselves a fresh pack of Alara Reborn. So jump back with me to the good old year of 2009 as we dive into this multicolor shenanigans. Here we are, Alara Reborn. This is going to be quite the treat for me. I have never opened a pack of this before. I just happened to be at a shop that was selling all of these older packs. Oh, goodness me. And we can tell that this guy has not... There we go. Oh, look at that. Pack fresh cards that have not seen the light of day since the early 2000s, or I guess the early 2010s, I suppose. This is copyrighted 2009, I believe I read. Yep. What a trip this is going to be. So, Alara Reborn has a really interesting gimmick to the booster pack contents of it, wherein every card in this set, this small set, I believe it was, back in the day when block structure used to be a thing, the third in a block of a set of a world that the plane visited was usually the smaller one. And so the fun thing they did for this, with the shards coming back together for the plane, every card is multicolor. So we've got a lot of multicolor cards to work through going through this pack, so we should get started right away. First up, Monstrous Carabid, a 3 black and a red for a 4/4 insect. It must attack each turn if able, and it cycles for hybrid Rakdos mana. That's real neat. If you need the creature late game as a 4/4 that has to attack, then fantastic. This is your guy for that. Cycling is also very cool, right? Pitch the card when you don't need it, and then it puts it in your graveyard for recursion later, potentially. That's really cool. Stormcaller's Boon. 2 white and a blue for an enchantment. Sacrifice Stormcaller's Boon. Creatures you control gain flying until end of turn. And the enchantment cascades. Boy, do we love some Cascade around here. Cascade is just extra added value on top of the spells you are already casting. And most case scenarios when it comes to Cascade, if you Cascade into another spell that has Cascade, the cascading continues. So that's why, like, a card like this one, you may not get tons of extra value out of it, all things considered, because this costs 4. But when you start putting Cascade onto the spells that have a much higher mana value, and you set your deck in such a way that Cascade is your theme, you could be casting one spell for like 6-7 mana and receiving an extra 4 to 8 total collectively, depending on how many other Cascade spells you hit. This is really cool. I've never seen this card before. This is really neat. I wouldn't say it's incredible, but that is a fantastic piece of art there of like some lizard dinosaur thingy receiving some astral wings. Really, really neat. Rock's Brute. 2 red and a green for a 4/4 Rhino Warrior. Isn't that refreshing to read a vanilla creature in today's Magic 2024 Euro Domini? That was almost English. Joseph will be real upset with me for messing up that lingo, but I mean, sure. This is a 4-mana 4/4. This kind of card would certainly be more practical for if you were playing these hypothetical Alara Limited, but I guess, sure. Vanilla All-Star. Ooh, a Border Post. I haven't thought about these in a long time. Wildfield Border Post. It is 1 green and a white for an artifact. By itself, it comes into play tapped and taps for either green or white. But it also has a neat effect that you can pay 1 and return a basic land to its owner's hand rather than pay its other mana cost. So how this would work is you can essentially use a basic land's worth of mana and then put this down into play tapped, and you've essentially turned a basic land into a tapped dual land that also then puts an artifact down for you into play. This, I believe this set has a full cycle of 10, just like in each of the 2 color pairs, that all of them have the pay 1 and bounce a basic land to your hand. This was basically how some of the fixing of this kind of set was used. You'd be able to play a land of 1 of your 3 shard colors, and this would allow you to then turn that 1 basic into 2 of the dual colors that you need, and then that basic land comes in later and gives you that 3rd or 4th if you were being a monster and going 4 colors up. I'm sure that was possible. You have to forgive me. I was not playing Magic at this time frame, so I would need some of you to let me know if border posts were ever any good. I could definitely see it potentially being somewhat decent in Commander, right? Like certain Commander decks that would care about artifacts. Maybe like especially in Grixis-y artifact colors, or potentially Esper. Both of those were themes of this as well, especially Esper. Esper was the artifact shard of this world. Yeah, getting your mana sources from artifacts could potentially be a really, really cool thing. So what we got here, Sonai Drake, 2 hybrid blue-red and a black for a 3/1 zombie Drake with flying and haste. Cool. Yeah, hybrid mana is fantastic when it comes to playing with cards in multicolor. It makes them a little bit tricky for Commander because the hybrid color has to be respected within the Commander color identity, but if you're in the right colors, anything that is castable by hybrid helps drastically increase how quickly you're able, and how effectively, I guess you should say, you can play these kinds of spells, because if only needing 1 of its 2 possible colors to pay the pip, you are not immediately screwed out of playing the spells if you don't immediately have those colors down in place. So if you're only doing blue and black at the time off of a card like this, you could get down this flying, hasting threat off of Dimir colors instead of needing the Rakdos colors. So that's kind of neat. I don't think this card is incredible, but again, look at what is going on there with that art. It's like spewing out like lava water from its eyes. That's super cool. What is this? Offering to Asha. 2 white and a blue for an instant. Counter target spell unless a controller pays 4. You gain 4 life. Whew! Hefty at 4 mana, but what a blowout that could be, honestly. If you're in the Azorius colors and care about life gain, that's a tricky one, because like conditional counterspell, I would feel better if this was just straight up. I think there is an Azorius counterspell that's like that. I think it's called Absorb, and I think it's 3 mana. It's blue, and a white. It just straight up counters a spell, and you gain 3, I think. So this is kind of feeling similar to that. Yeah, that's not great. It's pretty neat, but neat all the same. Ooh, now here's a cool thingy. God Tracker of Jund. 1 red and a green for a 2/2 elf shaman. Whenever a creature with power 5 or greater enters the battlefield under your control, you may put a +1/+1 counter on God Tracker of Jund. I believe the Jund colors. Naya was kind of also like this as well. That's actually why like this is like on the red-green card, because this would be suitable for both the Jund decks and the Naya decks. Both of those had a theme to them about having creatures come into the battlefield under your control with power 5 or greater. I guess you would call this a predecessor to Ferocious, more or less. If Ferocious dropped the power down to 1 more as well. 5 power was very big in this block, and this little guy that would continue to get bigger as you had bigger creatures come into play. Again, not awesome, but cool that he was able to scale with the other big boys as you had them come into play. Oh, here's something really neat. Igneous Pouncer. Yeah, reading some of these old cards can sometimes be a real challenge. Igneous Pouncer, 4 black and a red for a 5/1 elemental with haste and swamp cycling and mountain cycling. That's really cool. You could, this also doesn't say basic on that cycling either, so this can be used to cycle your way into any of like a dual land that is typed, as long as it has either a swamp or a mountain, whichever of the 2 that you needed, as long as your deck was at least Rakdos colors in its casting cost. Neat! I don't think I've ever really seen this card before. That's very cool. The flexibility of cycling on that sounds incredible. Esper Sojourners, a white, blue, and a black for an artifact creature Vidalcan Wizard is a 2/3. When you cycle Esper Sojourners, or it's put into a graveyard from play, you may tap or untap target permanent, and it cycles for 2 and a blue. Neat! That's super cool. It reminds me of a Vizier of Tumbling Sands from the original, again, I think the first of Amonkhet, that it had a cycling trigger on it that you could basically at instant speed pay the cost to cycle it and either tap or untap something. This is really, really cool that it cycles for only the blue. You don't necessarily have to have your Esper colors, and that you can tap or untap a permanent. This can be used offensively by untapping a blocker, or you can use it defensively and tap something of your opponent's that's about to go to combat to you, and it replenishes itself in your hand because that's what cycling does. You discard it and draw. Very, very cool. I like that. Grizzled Leotau? I'm going to go with Leotau. Green and a white for a 1/5 creature cat. That's it. Oh man, how strong were vanilla creatures back in the day? I really gotta know, because like, while I got started playing the game in Theros block, and Theros definitely forward, definitely had its share of legendary creatures, I don't remember really playing in sets at all that featured a ton at common of legendary creatures. Is a 1/5 butt for 2 what you're looking to do with these colors? I guess? It blocks real early, but that's cool. Cool cat. All right, we're into our uncommons now. Skyclaw Thrash, 3 blue and a red for a 4/4 artifact Viashino Warrior that I believe coming up here pretty soon, if that hasn't already been officially changed, Viashino is being changed to Lizard, I think. Don't hold me to that, but I'm pretty certain that's something I saw that's being errataed as a creature type. So soon this is about to be a Lizard, but for now, we're going to call him a Viashino. Whenever he attacks, flip a coin. If you win the flip, he gets +1/+1 in flying till end of turn. Ooh, conditional flying on a 4/4 that can then become either a 4/4 on the ground or a 5/5 in the air conditionally? Is this a card that, like, Zindersplint and Alchem would want potentially because it, like, flips coins at combat? That's interesting, huh? I've never seen this one before. Being an artifact, I'm sure there's some synergy there in some capacity. Very neat, very neat. Messenger Falcons, 2 hybrid green-blue mana and a white mana for a 2/2 bird with flying, and when it enters the battlefield, draw a card. Oh, cool. That's a neat flicker target, I suppose. And again, for the same reasons that we talked about with that Grixis hybrid split-colored one, is that you don't necessarily need your full Bant to be able to play this kind of card. You can either cast it for green-white or blue-white, and it just draws a card on into the battlefield. The color pairing, unfortunately, is kind of restrictive on there, but I guess if you're doing a Bant-colored Blink deck, this is really neat. This is on par with a bunch of other cards like these. Maybe not the casting cost per se, right? I can think of like 3 mana things that enter and draw a card, even 2 mana ones like Baleful Strix, but I suppose if you needed another draw card target, here you go. Ooh boy, now this is a personal favorite of mine. I have yet to find a home for a card like this. I own a copy of this card already, but I really think there's a cool potential with a card like this. Sigil Captain, 1 green and white for a 3/3 Rhino Soldier, that when a creature enters the battlefield under your control, if that creature is a 1/1, you put 2 +1/+1 counters on it. That is so cool, man, right? Imagine all of your things that make tokens that are 1/1s. Soldiers, Saprolings, plants, goblins, dogs, elves, any of that kind of stuff. If they enter the battlefield as a 1/1, Sigil Captain will instantly put 1/1 counters on that thing. No Anthem effect coming from like an enchantment or a buff or anything like that. I really want to try to make this thing be super good. I just have not had the right build to make it work. That's really neat. Nice to see you, old friend. You're so cool. What is this? There's a theme. Hold on. Is this a token? What is this? Oh, it's just a theme, the gold standard. Every single card in your Alara Reborn set is multicolored. Yes, every single card. They even really wanted to emphasize that point that this was a wacky set. Cool, thanks, crap card. We got ourselves a lovely looking little forest. I love the glow behind the trees on that there. And our rare is Spellbreaker Behemoth. 1 red and double green for a 5/5 beast that can't be countered, and creature spells you control with power 5 or greater can't be countered. Ooh, if you're playing Battle Cruiser and you're just digging in hard on the big power creatures, that's a nasty one. Ooh. We've had a bunch of cards like these since this set that have done this kind of thing more effectively. I feel like there's again, back to the original Amonkhet, Prowling Serpapard that just lets your creatures, no matter their size, be uncounterable, but a 4-mana 5/5 that then can't be countered. It triggers all of your power 5 or greater things, gives you Ferocious, is a beast. Pretty easy to cast, all things considered, right? Double green, if you're in heavy green, you're doing big creatures anyways, so I really like that. That's super cool. We got anything else back there? Nope, that is going to do it for this pack. So, for pack-it-in purposes, I think the obvious suspect is going to be the Spellbreaker Behemoth, right? Like, you're playing a at least Gruul-colored, big beats creature-style deck. That's fantastic, right? An uncounterable 5/5 that then makes everything else of yours power 5 or greater. I can already tell you, I think I've got a home for that card in mind in my own Surak Dragonclaw Battle Cruiser deck. He's going to fit phenomenally in that build. I obviously all prattled on a bit about Sigil Captain. I really like the idea of being able to throw this into a tokens deck and then suddenly all those tokens that you're popping out before any other kind of buffs, you can get them up to be 3/3s. Would be really cool paired nowadays, actually, with, I believe the card is Tribute to the World Tree that also puts counters on your small creatures, and then creatures at a particular power when they come into play draws you cards. I believe those triggers could be ordered in such a way that Sigil Captain will put the counters on the thing, and then Tribute will see their current power and draw you a card. I'm pretty certain it would work like that, but don't hold me to that either, because I'm bad with rules sometimes. Apart from that, again, I think this border post could potentially be something quite spicy if you're looking to do artifact sources for your ramping. That's really neat. Where's that cycler? Here he is. The Igneous Pouncer. Yeah, like, I don't think this would be the kind of card that you are playing out onto the battlefield. I think the usefulness of a card like this definitely comes from its non-basic swamp and mountain cycling. That's really, really cool. And I suppose if you do a cycling theme in the Esper colors, this Esper Sojourners could potentially be something that you like combo out with. You know what I mean? Like being able to tap and untap stuff can lead to some very fun game actions. But the real challenge out of a pack like this is obviously because everything is in multicolored. Not every single one of these is going to make their way into a deck just because of the nature of how Commander color identity works. But if you're in some of these particular colors, some of these options that are here are fantastic. And Alara has been, obviously, as its whole theme being multicolor, especially past like more than 2 as compared to Ravnica. Alara cards are fantastic to look into as far as looking for multicolor purposes and card synergies. So that's going to do it for this episode of Pack It In. Thank you so much for being here for this. I hope you enjoyed this nice little throwback to our good old year friend of 2009. Feeling old yet? That's okay, me too. You can tell me about it down in the comments down below. Join our Discord while you're there as well, in the link in the description. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate every single one of you, and we'll see you next time for the next episode of Pack It In.